27 नवंबर 2022 की करंट अफेयर है। सबसे पहली न्यूज़ है सेकंड हाईलाइट में पेज नंबर 3 में की द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट प्रपोजेज टू मेक बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट a mandatory document for almost every sphere of life: admission in educational institutions, inclusion in the voter list, appointment in central and state government jobs, issue of driving license and passport. According to a draft bill to amend the Registration of Birth and Death (RBD Act 1969), the bill is likely to be tabled in the winter session. It also covers, first highlight है, it also covers the death certificates and make it mandatory for hospitals to provide a copy of all death certificates stating the cause of death to the local registrar apart from the relative of the deceased. The centrally stored data on births and deaths will be updated in real time without any need for human interface, leading to addition and deletion from the electoral roll when an individual turns 18 and after death respectively. Though registration of the database on the births will be linked to electoral rolls for automatic inclusion, the implement also covers death certificates and makes it mandatory for hospitals to provide a copy of all death certificates stating the cause of death to the local registrar apart from the relative of the deceased. Births and deaths is already compulsory under the Registration of Births and Death Act 1969 and violating it is a punishable offence. The government intends to improve compliance by making the registration mandatory to access basic services. Next पेज नंबर 8 पे हाईलाइट है सेकंड PSLV C-54 successfully places 9 satellites in multiple orbits. Earth Observation Satellite EOS-06 and 8 nanosatellites, including one for Bhutan, and a few commercial entities were part of the payload. First highlight है कि EOS यानी कि Earth Observation Satellite 06 is envisaged to observe ocean color data, sea surface temperature and wind vector data to use in oceanography, climatic and meteorological applications. The satellite also supports value-added products such as potential fishing zones using chlorophyll, SST and wind speed and land-based geophysical parameters. Third highlight है कि तेलंगाना scored a double win at the UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards for Cultural Heritage Conservation with the distinction of merit for the restoration of the 17th century step wells inside the Qutub Shahi Tombs complex in Hyderabad and an award of merit for the conservation work on the Domakonda Fort, built in the 18th century in Kamaredi district. The awards were announced in Bangkok on Saturday. पेज नंबर 9 पे हाईलाइट है द लद्दाख ऑटोनॉमस हिल डेवलपमेंट काउंसिल कारगिल LAHDC के एन इलेक्टेड बॉडी, ठीक है, इलेक्टेड बॉडी है ऑफ द यूटी ऑफ लद्दाख हैज़ पास्ड अ जॉइंट रेजोल्यूशन and demanded statehood and special status under the 6th schedule of the constitution for the region. At least 6th schedule, ठीक है, 6th schedule बहुत important है. At least 21 members of the 30 member council supported the resolution moved by the executive council Panchok Tashi on Friday. The joint resolution demanded full-fledged statehood for Ladakh, protection under the 6th schedule of the constitution, separate Lok Sabha seats for Kargil and Leh district, and establishment of the Ladakh Public Service Commission and Ladakh Resident Certificate as a mandatory requirement for all gazetted posts. Page number 10 पे at the Constitution Day celebrations organized by the Supreme Court, Mr. Modi said 15 members of the Constituent Assembly were women. ठीक है, तो Constituent Assembly में कितनी वुमेन्स थी? 15. One of them, Dakshyani Veludhan, who belonged to a marginalized community, made important interventions to protect the right of oppressed classes. Durgabai Deshmukh, Hansa Mehta and Rajkumari Amrit Kaur and the other women members too had contributed significantly on topics related to women. ठीक है, तो वन ऑफ देम कौन सी थी? दक्षिणी वेलायुधान. पेज नंबर 11 है। 11 में फर्स्ट हाईलाइट है कि हिमालयन याक गेट्स फूड एनिमल टैग मिल्क एंड मीट टू बी यूज्ड। ठीक है, तो अब थर्ड हाईलाइट है कि द हिमालयन याक हैज़ अर्नड द फूड एनिमल टैग फ्रॉम द फूड सेफ्टी एंड स्टैंडर्ड्स अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया FSSAI. The categorization is expected to help check the decline in the population of the high altitude bovine by making it a part of the conventional milk and meat industry. ठीक है, तो FSSAI के बारे में जान लेना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि ये क्या होती है, कौन सी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, कब बनी और इसका मेन फंक्शन क्या है। ठीक है, उसके बाद फोर्थ हाईलाइट है कि अकॉर्डिंग टू अ सेंसस कैरिड आउट इन 2019 इंडिया हैज़ सम 58,000 याक्स, a drop of about 25% from the livestock census of 2012. The drastic decline could be attributed to less remuneration from the bovid and discouraging the younger generations from continuing the nomadic yak rearing. The sale of the yak milk and meat is limited to local consumers. ठीक है, 11th पेज पे सेकंड हाईलाइट है कि India has enough fertilizer stock to meet the rabi requirement. The government is not dependent on one country for supplies and there are measures in place to broad-based sources to hedge against any shortage, says the Union Fertilizer Secretary. 12th नंबर पेज में क्या है हाईलाइट फर्स्ट कि इंडिया वाज नॉट इन्वाइट। ठीक है, इंडिया कहाँ पे इन्वाइट नहीं करा, CIDCA इज चाइनाज न्यू डेवलपमेंट एड एजेंसी। ठीक है, जो सिडका है वो चाइना की न्यू डेवलपमेंट एड एजेंसी, और यहाँ पे इंडिया को भी इन्वाइट नहीं करा। ठीक है, तो सेकंड हाईलाइट में एक्सप्लेन किया हुआ चाइना दिस वीक कन्वीन्ड द फर्स्ट चाइना इंडियन ओशियन रीजन फोरम ब्रिंगिंग टुगेदर 19 कंट्रीज फ्रॉम द रीजन एंड ऑल ऑफ इंडियाज नेबर्स एक्सेप्ट फॉर इंडिया इटसेल्फ द लोन एब्सेंटी फ्रॉम ए न्यू बीजिंग स्ट्रेटेजिक इनिशिएटिव. द फोरम हेल्ड इन कनमिंग in southern western Yunnan province on November 21 brought together representatives from 19 countries including Indonesia, Pakistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Maldives, Nepal, Afghanistan, Iran, Oman, South Africa, Kenya, Mozambique, Tanzania, Seychelles, Madagascar, Mauritius, Djibouti and Australia. तो जोग्राफी के मैप में वर्ल्ड के मैप में इन्हें देख लें कहाँ पे हैं ये। पेज नंबर 30 पे है कि 13th में अभी मुंबई मीजल्स आउटब्रेक ड्यू टू लो वैक्सीनेशन कवरेज. एविडेंस फ्रॉम एल्सवेयर सजेस्ट दैट द अनवैक्सीनेटेड चिल्ड्रन हैव नियरली 70% हायर मोर्टेलिटी रिस्क कंपेयर्ड विद द वैक्सीनेटेड चिल्ड्रन. ठीक है, फिर थर्ड हाईलाइट है कि लेप्रोसिस वन ऑफ द वर्ल्ड्स ओल्डेस्ट एंड मोस्ट persistent diseases, but the bacteria that causes it may also have the surprising ability to grow and regenerate a vital organ, that is a liver. Scientists have discovered that the parasites associated with leprosy can reprogram cells to increase the size of liver in adult animals without causing damage, scarring or tumors. As per the release, the findings of the Cell Reports Medicine suggest this. सेकंड हाईलाइट किया कि साइंटिस्ट ने क्या डिस्कवर करा है, ब्लैक कोरल्स नियर ऑस्ट्रेलिया. ब्लैक कोरल्स जो होते हैं वो या तो डीप वाटर में होंगे या मीडियम वाटर में होंगे. ठीक है, शैलो से लेकर डीप वाटर्स में होंगे. 14th पेज. ठीक है, तो 14th पेज पे आर्टिकल आया कि जो सुसाइड्स के बारे में कि टेकिंग इट अप इन इंडिया. फर्स्ट हाईलाइट है इन इंडिया सुसाइड हैज़ बिकम द नंबर 1 cause of death among those aged 15 to 29 years, exceeding deaths due to road traffic accidents and maternal mortality. India's contribution to global suicides increased from 25.3% in 1990 to 36.6% in 2016 among women and from 18.7% से 24.3% among men. Taking it up as a public health priority, the Union Ministry of Health and Family Welfare last week released the nation's first ever national strategy for suicide prevention. ठीक है, national strategy for suicide prevention. It posted a copy of the strategy online on its website, structured closely on the lines of the World Health Organization's guidelines for suicide prevention in the Southeast Asian region. The national strategy promises to adhere to the cultural and social requirements of India, with specific recognition of its current field level infrastructure. What does it hope to achieve? The overall vision of the document is to create a society where people value their lives and are supported when they are in need. It aims at reducing suicide mortality by 10% in the country by 2030. The National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, will also play an anchoring role, offering support to the implementation. A time-bound action plan has also been laid out by the government. It has offered commitments to establish effective surveillance mechanism for suicide prevention in the next 3 years. Establish psychiatric OPD that provides suicide prevention services through the district mental health plan in all districts within the next 5 years, and to integrate mental well-being curriculum in all the educational institutions within the next 8 years. This is also a huge component of for stigma reduction, as stigma is seen as a hurdle in the process of seeking counseling and treatment options. Dr. Lakshmi says, in addition to the question of stigma, the strategy is sensitive to India-specific issues, including reducing easy access to means of suicide, for instance, pesticides. It also vows to leverage the media in order to spread awareness and destigmatize mental health and promote responsible media reporting of suicide. Strengthening data collection on suicide and attempts to suicide will also be a key part of the strategy. Neither the last nor the least of these initiatives is the effort to develop community resilience and societal support for suicide prevention and reduce suicide behavior. ठीक है, तो नेक्स्ट अब आते हैं कि व्हाट डज द ड्राफ्ट ऑन ऑनलाइन रिव्यू एंटेल, व्हाई हैज़ द गवर्नमेंट क्रैक्ड डाउन अगेंस्ट द प्रोडक्ट एंड सर्विसेज रिव्यूज़ ऑन ई कॉमर्स वेबसाइट्स। ठीक है, तो ई कॉमर्स वेबसाइट्स पे जो रिव्यूज़ होते हैं पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव्स, तो गवर्नमेंट ने जो ड्राफ्ट ऑनलाइन रिव्यू एंटेल निकाल रहा है, ठीक है, तो इसका पर्पस ये है कि जो फेक रिव्यूज़ हैं उनको कर्ब किया जाए, कम किया जाए, मतलब जो है उनको फेक रिव्यूज़ को कम किया जाए ताकि जो कंज्यूमर है उसको एक्चुअल प्रोडक्ट की क्वालिटी का पता चले। तो 6 हाईलाइट है कि द स्टैंडर्ड्स आर एनफोर्स्ड ऑन November 25 and apply to any platform which publishes consumer reviews online. Of late, however, there have concerns about the integrity of these reviews. There are complaints ranging from manufactured positive reviews by sellers or negative reviews by a competitor, engagement of online reputation management companies for providing reviews to a trust deficit in websites, allegedly exercising bias for certain products by filtering out either negative or positive reviews. Why are guidelines necessary? Local Circles, a community research platform and part of the committee that drafted the guidelines, had 64% respondents in its survey acknowledging they consult review at all times. ठीक है, 64% जो होते हैं लोग ये बोल रहे हैं कि वो रिव्यू देखते हैं, ठीक है, कोई भी डिसीजन लेने से पहले। 26% के बोलते हैं वो कभी कभी देखते हैं, ओकेजनली, एंड 7% ओनली फॉर एक्सपेंसिव प्रोडक्ट्स, और 7% के बोलते हैं कि वो रिव्यू सिर्फ जो महंगे प्रोडक्ट्स हैं उन पे देखते हैं, बाकी नहीं देखते। ठीक है, तो नेक्स्ट हाईलाइट है, कंपनीज हैव बोथ पेनलाइज्ड एंड इंसेंटिवाइज्ड कंज्यूमर्स फॉर राइटिंग नेगेटिव एंड पॉजिटिव रिव्यूज रिस्पेक्टिवली। द ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट वाज आल्सो अफर्म्ड इन द सेम सर्वे दैट हैड 80% respondents stating they purchased a product seeing higher reviews only to be left disappointed at least once. How do the guidelines deal with fake reviews? The crackdown on the fake reviews will have to begin by establishing the credentials of the author and their experience. This is also in the context of how consumers with their newfound status as public critic advance positive reviews for certain returns. The guidelines state that user authentication is to be done either through email, telephone call, SMS, single sign-on, and or CAPTCHA system, among other methods. Without acknowledging the terms and conditions of the website and providing an email or telephone number, users will not be able to write reviews. The website has to make certain that all systems have anti-fraud mechanisms in place to protect personal data from internal and external fraud. तो लास्ट में बोलते हैं कि हाउ विल द रिव्यूज़ बी मॉडरेटेड। द सेंट्रल आइडिया इज़ टू इंश्योर दैट द एक्सपीरियंसेस आर जेन्युइन. दिस वुड बी ascertained थ्रू authors activities such as frequency of writing reviews, history of contributions, location and use of language. The text must not contain profanity, illicit content, unintelligible content, and reveal the author's identity. especially because the review could also be done anonymously. Reviews must also mention the date of publishing so that the readers are able to identify the more recent reviews irrespective of the website's default filter. All reviews, whether positive or negative, are to be dealt with similar standards and operandi. This would particularly tackle negative reviews from being filtered out. The filtering particularly bothers consumers who do not have any space to share grievances because their complaints with the product arose after the return window had closed. Thus, the experience criteria would have to consider this aspect too for soliciting reviews. Overall, violations would not only result in the particular review being removed, other reviews on the site will be marked for scrutiny and they may be disallowed from carrying reviews on the platform again. ठीक है, तो नेक्स्ट है चीफ इलेक्शन कमीशन के बारे में, इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया के बारे में। ठीक है, तो सेकंड हाईलाइट है कि अरुण गोयल, a former Punjab cadre IAS officer of the 1985 batch, was scheduled to retire as Secretary, Ministry of Heavy Industries on December 31. However, barely 6 weeks ahead of his superannuation, Mr. Goyal sought voluntary retirement from services and it was approved on November 18. ठीक है, the next day he was appointed as election commissioner, filling the vacancy that was created by the retirement of Sushil Chandra. The President is pleased to appoint Arun Goyal as the election commissioner in the election commission with effect from the date he assumes the office. Now he is in line to be the chief election commissioner in the Election Commission of India, which conducts the Assembly and Lok Sabha elections. Mr. Goyal will be in line to be the next chief election commissioner when the incumbent Rajiv Kumar retires in February 2025. Mr. Goyal will be in office till December 2027. ठीक है, तो अभी पिछले 2-3 दिनों से न्यूज़ में कवर भी करा हुआ है कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्वेश्चन भी करा कि इतनी जल्दी कैसे आपने इलेक्शन कमीशन जो है कमिश्नर जो अपॉइंट कर दिया। ठीक है, लास्ट पेज है कि सेकंड हाईलाइट है कि इंडस्ट्री अर्जेस गवर्नमेंट टू एस्टैब्लिश इंडिया रेयर अर्थ मिशन टू रिड्यूस रिलायंस ऑन चाइना पॉलिसी। ठीक है, टू रिड्यूस रिलायंस ऑन चाइना, द पॉलिसी मस्ट बैक प्राइवेट सेक्टर माइनिंग इन क्रिटिकल सेक्टर इन विच India produces only 1% of the global output despite having 6% of the world's reserves. CII suggests, Confederation of Indian Industries suggests splitting state-run Indian Rare Earth Limited and tasking new entity with overseeing the mining production of non-thorium minerals. First highlight है कि reliance on China for imports of critical earth metals. Industry has urged the government to encourage private sector mining in the sector and diversify sources of supply for these strategic raw materials.